Welcome to our video on the legendary Red Skelton, a comedian who brought joy to millions but whose private life was overshadowed by heartbreak. Although his hilarious sketches and iconic television show, The Red Skelton Show, cemented his place in entertainment history, the tragedies he endured offstage, including the devastating illness of his young son, reveal a story that isn't funny at all. Join us as we explore the extraordinary highs and heartbreaking lows of Red Skelton's life and uncover how the laughter he shared with the world often stood in stark contrast to the sorrow he carried in his heart. Introduction and background. One of the most well-known comedy actors in the world was Red Skelton. Red Skelton is best known for his television program, The Red Skelton Show, which aired on the National Broadcasting Company from 1951 to 1953 and subsequently on the Columbia Broadcasting System from 1953 until 1970. Skelton had an endearing personality, was a talented pantomimist, and had a career full of paradoxes. He also acted in a number of comedies. Born on a warm July 18 in 1913, Skelton entered the world as Richard Bernard Skelton. His father, a clown in the Hagen-Beck-Wallace Circus, tragically passed away before his son's arrival. Early life and start in show business left to navigate a world plagued by scarcity, young Red grew up in the clutches of punishing poverty. Despite these hardships, his spirits remained unyielding. At the tender age of 10, Skelton embarked on a journey into the realm of show business. He honed his craft in various arenas, from stock companies to tent shows, burlesque to vaudeville. The stage became his playground, and the audience his muse. Here we see the very essence of Skelton's earliest days as a performer. Life was unkind in many ways, he lost his father, and the economic realities were grim. Yet, rather than succumbing to despair, he found an outlet that might seem unusual for a child: show business. By an early age, he was already filling small roles, selling newspapers on the street, or performing comedic bits to grab passers-by's attention. This hustle was more than a pastime. It was a necessity for someone who needed to contribute to the family's meager income. At times, he even sang in local amateur shows or offered jokes to vaudeville managers in exchange for tips or small coins. Every small gig helped shape the boy into the showman he would become. Vaudeville during the 1920s was a melting pot of entertainment styles that included singers, dancers, magicians, comedic acts, and even animal performances. It gave performers a chance to hone their routines in front of live audiences who expected novelty and skill. For a young Red Skelton, it was a ready-made training ground. He stood on stage alongside performers much older than himself, observing their comedic timing and stage presence. This hands-on experience served as a dynamic education, reinforcing essential showbiz lessons: how to pace a joke, how to keep the audience engaged, and how to adapt his material on the fly if it wasn't connecting. Because he started so young, Skelton had to mature quickly. The traveling life of tent shows and burlesque circuits was often harsh, yet the environment was also brimming with artistic camaraderie. Older performers served as mentors, teaching him the significance of comedic timing and polished pantomime. Particularly, the tradition of physical comedy that was prevalent in burlesque and vaudeville circuits became a hallmark of Skelton's style. With large gestures, facial expressions, and pratfalls, he could get laughs even if the audience couldn't hear a word. This skill would later be critical to his success in radio and television, as it provided a backbone for his comedic versatility. Furthermore, young Skelton's aspiration to entertain did more than earn him a living, it gave him an identity. The comedic roles he developed in these early performances foreshadowed the beloved characters he would create in adulthood. By immersing himself in various comedic forms, from slapstick to witty repartee, he forged a versatile comedic repertoire that could adapt to changing times and tastes. This adaptability would prove invaluable when he made the leap to radio and film, where comedic styles had to be adjusted to fit different formats and audience expectations. The 1930s comedic breakthrough. It was during the 1930s that a stroke of comedic genius struck Red Skelton. A formula emerged, allowing him to extract humor from the idiosyncrasies of everyday people. His gift for pantomime flourished, and he soon crafted a routine that brought delight to audiences worldwide, a routine that centered around the peculiar ways people dunked their donuts. This gem of comedic brilliance was eventually immortalized in a two-reel short film called The Broadway Buckaroo in 1938. First steps in film. Skelton took his first steps into the world of films when RKO, Radio Keith Studios recognized his talent and hired him to bring his vaudeville routines to the silver screen in a movie called Having Wonderful Time. In this film, Skelton portrayed the character of Itchy Faulkner, the entertainment director of a resort camp nestled in the scenic Catskill Mountains. One of his most memorable routines in the movie revolved around the amusing ways people ascend a flight of stairs. Despite his commendable performance, RKO did not express a continued interest in working with him. MGM and Rise-To Stardom, however, in 1940, Skelton's fortunes took a turn when the prestigious Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer studio decided to utilize his comedic skills as relief in films like Flight Command and two Dr. Kildare movies. But it was his first major role that truly propelled him to stardom. Skelton landed the role of Wally Benton, also known as the Fox, a radio comic who unravels mysteries, in a remake of the film Whistling in the Dark, 1941. Accomplished comedy writer Nat Perrin infused the script with a plethora of witty lines tailored to Skelton's unique style. This marked the beginning of a series of whistling films, including Whistling in Dixie, 1942, and Whistling in Brooklyn, 1943. Though these movies may not have been uproariously hilarious, they carried an unpretentious and enjoyable charm, representing Skelton's finest work in the film medium. MGM, with its Roaring Lion trademark, was arguably the most glamorous of the Hollywood studios. Known for big-budget musicals, star-laden dramas, and lavish sets, MGM was where many top-tier talents of the era ended up if they had that special sparkle. For Skelton, joining the MGM roster meant access to larger audiences, higher production values, and association with the same studio that boasted stars like Judy Garland, Clark Gable, and Gene Kelly. Such an environment could be intimidating, but it also provided a platform that few performers could dream of at the time. His role as Wally Benton illuminated his capacity to blend comedic elements with a dash of adventure and suspense. This hybrid character, a radio comedian who stumbles into detective work, gave him plenty of opportunities to showcase his comedic flair while also engaging viewers in an ongoing mystery. The comedic bits were carefully woven into the storyline, demonstrating that Skelton was not just a slapstick performer, but a comedic actor capable of handling narratives that required comedic timing within a plot structure. Nat Perrin's contribution to these films cannot be overstated. Perrin was an experienced writer, having worked with the Marx Brothers, who understood comedic pacing and how to tailor jokes to a performer's strengths. Writing lines specifically for Skelton meant maximizing the comedic potential of his talents. Whether it was a deadpan one-liner delivered with an innocent face or a physical gag that had him tripping over set pieces, the scripts played to his strengths, providing him the chance to shine in ways he hadn't been allowed to at RKO. Furthermore, the Whistling series offered a consistent framework. By reprising his role, Skelton was able to refine his character's quirks and comedic devices. Audiences grew fond of Wally Benton's antics, culminating in a sense of familiarity that would be capitalized on with each new installment. Although some critics argued that the scripts were formulaic, Skelton's charm and comedic timing ensured they remained popular enough to warrant multiple sequels. It was a career-defining period, cementing his place in Hollywood's comedic hierarchy. Notable MGM appearances and routines. Despite being part of the esteemed Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer studio, there was a struggle to effectively showcase Skelton's talents, often relegating him to minor comedic roles. He was given brief routines in various grand MGM productions such as Neptune's Daughter, 1949, and Lovely to Look At, 1952. However, it was in Bathing Beauty, 1944, that Skelton truly shone. He delighted audiences with a routine centered around the comical experiences of a woman as she starts her day. Another notable appearance came in Ziegfeld Follies, 1946. Where Skelton's popular Guzzler's Gin routine was cleverly transformed into a piece titled When Television Comes, serving as a comedic highlight in this multifaceted film. During this period, musicals and spectacular revues were a major draw for MGM. Films like Neptune's Daughter or Ziegfeld Follies often featured an all-star lineup of popular performers, each contributing a segment or song. For Skelton, these cameo-like appearances offered moments to engage audiences in purely comedic segments that could steal the show. Even if he only had a few minutes of screen time, his impeccable timing and ability to milk laughs from physical comedy or short punchy dialogues made a significant impact. In Bathing Beauty, starring Esther Williams, Skelton's comedic routine about a woman's morning regimen demonstrated his knack for observational humor. Audiences laughed as he pantomimed the struggles and silly habits one might have upon waking up, like fumbling to turn off an alarm, tripping over slippers, or reacting to a surprise reflection in the mirror. Such physical comedy crossed linguistic barriers and resonated with viewers of all ages. Although the film is remembered for Williams's spectacular water ballets, Skelton's comedic bits provided a refreshing counterbalance to the film's more glamorous aspects. Ziegfeld Follies, designed as a grand revue reminiscent of Florenz Ziegfeld's stage extravaganzas, gave Skelton a chance to link his comedic gifts to a historical tradition of large-scale musical revues. The Guzzler's Gin Routine, retitled When Television Comes, offered a whimsical preview of the then nascent medium of television. Skelton's comedic imagination foresaw a future in which entertainment would be piped directly into people's living rooms, yet he did it with the comedic flair of a performer who remained conscious of television's potential foibles. Audiences roared at the exaggerated possibilities, and in retrospect, the routine captured some truths about how television would indeed transform the public's relationship to entertainment. This forward-looking comedic piece further exemplified Skelton's ability to adapt and stay relevant, even as the industry underwent rapid changes. While some of Skelton's film appearances were fleeting, they collectively contributed to a tapestry showcasing his range. He could do situational comedy, pantomime, short skits, or comedic monologues. Each cameo reinforced his brand as a beloved performer who could elevate any project he joined, regardless of its scale or genre. This capacity to seamlessly blend into grand productions or hold his own in a starring role underscored why the industry continued to offer him opportunities even if they didn't always fully utilize his potential. Radio career from 1941 to 1953, Skelton had the privilege of hosting his own radio series. It was during this time that he cultivated the memorable characters for which he became widely recognized. Among these beloved personas were Junior, George Appleby, Sheriff Deadeye, Willie Lump Lump, Cauliflower McPug, Bolivar Shagnasty, and many others. Radio presented a different set of challenges and opportunities compared to film or stage. Lacking the visual component, radio demanded that Skelton's comedic talents revolve around timing, vocal expressiveness, and well-crafted dialogue. He excelled in this environment, breathing life into a variety of characters who each had distinct quirks, voices, and comedic styles. Junior was often portrayed as a mischievous boy with a nasally giggle, while Sheriff Deadeye became a bumbling law enforcer with a voice that hinted at comedic ineptitude. Listeners would tune in, excited to hear which alter ego Skelton would introduce next, and how the comedic scenarios would unfold. The longevity of his radio career over a decade demonstrates how effectively he connected with listeners. Radio was arguably the dominant form of home entertainment during World War II and its immediate aftermath, offering families a nightly ritual of gathering around the living room radio. Skelton's show slotted neatly into this pattern, providing lighthearted fun in a time when morale was pivotal. Many of his comedic bits featured everyday situations or silly misunderstandings, reminding listeners that laughter could be found even during the most challenging periods of global conflict and post-war adjustment. An integral aspect of Skelton's radio success was his collaborative relationship with skilled writers who could craft scripts that allowed him to transition seamlessly between characters. These writers understood the comedic potential inherent in Skelton's vocal range and willingness to perform physical humor even within an audio-only medium. Listeners might not see him trip or mime a gesture, but they could hear the aftermath in his voice or an accompanying sound effect. This synergy led to comedic sketches that had the spontaneity of a live performance, even though they were often carefully scripted. Additionally, radio provided a platform for sponsors, who saw in Skelton a wholesome, family-friendly persona that could effectively sell products without alienating audiences. This commercial aspect was vital for the survival of many radio shows, and Skelton's comedic consistency made him a valuable partner for advertisers. The result was a stable environment where he could refine characters, experiment with new ones, and cultivate a devoted fan base. These radio-born characters also offered a glimpse into the comedic archetypes that he would later adapt and refine for television, ensuring continuity across mediums. Army service and return to Mem Skelton's career took an interesting turn when he served in the Army for a period. Upon his return to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the films in which he starred failed to evoke laughter from audiences, resulting in disappointing outcomes. However, there were exceptions. One notable film, I Doed It, 1943, directed by Vincente Minnelli, drew inspiration from Buster Keaton's earlier work at MGM, specifically Spike Marriage, 1929. World War II interrupted the careers of many entertainers, either through enlistment or conscription into service-related duties. In Skelton's case, his time in the army was relatively brief but symbolically important. Not only did he perform in military shows meant to boost troop morale, but he also gained life experience that contrasted sharply with the whimsical world of show business. This break from Hollywood's bubble, even though short, introduced him to the real-life struggles and camaraderie of those in uniform. Performing for soldiers stationed overseas or in camps stateside gave him a renewed sense of purpose. Comedy could bring brief respite to those facing the harsh realities of war. That sense of responsibility to uplift spirits would remain with him long after his discharge. Upon returning to MGM, however, he found that comedic tastes had shifted in his absence. Audiences were now looking for different forms of humor, perhaps more mature or more situationally grounded. Skelton's comedic style, which at times skewed toward slapstick, needed updating. Some post-war MGM films featuring him felt outdated or mismatched with the evolving tastes of a country rebuilding itself. Yet, I Dude It stood out as an attempt to recapture the comedic magic of earlier silent film gags. With Vincente Minnelli at the helm and in homage to Buster Keaton's pantomime brilliance, the film gave Skelton a framework for comedic success. I Dude It also underscored Skelton's enduring admiration for Buster Keaton's silent-era comedy. Drawing from Keaton's blueprint, Skelton revisited physical comedy elements, including elaborate sight gags and precisely timed pratfalls. While the film might not have been a critical success of epic proportions, it showcased glimpses of Skelton's comedic potential post-army. More importantly, it reaffirmed that comedic films relying on visual humor and pantomime could still resonate, provided they were executed with creativity and skill. This partial success laid the groundwork for further explorations in comedic style and character-driven humor. Influence of Buster Keaton and collaborations. Skelton developed a close relationship with the talented but underutilized Keaton, who generously shared his comedic insights and collaborated with Skelton on some of his more successful projects. This collaboration included films like A Southern Yankee, 1948, and The Yellow Cabman, 1950. To avoid arousing suspicion from the higher-ups, former Keaton director Edward Sedgwick was credited as the comedy consultant. Keaton astutely identified a crucial issue with A Southern Yankee when filming commenced. Skelton's portrayal of a bumbling northern spy in the South initially came across as imbecilic, alienating the audience. Recognizing this, the scenes were res-hot to temper Skelton's zany behavior. Additionally, Keaton contributed a timeless gag to the film, Skelton donning a uniform that was half Union and half Confederate, amusingly strolling between the two sides to a chorus of cheers until the charade was inevitably discovered. Further film ventures. In The Yellow Cabman, Skelton portrayed a character aspiring to be an inventor of unbreakable glass and other safety contraptions. The movie featured a classic routine showcasing Skelton's comedic genius as he embarked on his first day as a cab driver, creating hilarity along the way. Another noteworthy venture was his loan out to Columbia Pictures for The Fuller Brush Man, 1948, in which he played a door-to-door salesman entangled in a murder mystery. The film achieved success, leading to a sequel titled The Fuller Brush Girl, 1950, starring the incomparable Lucille Ball, with Skelton making a brief appearance. One of Skelton's most memorable quips occurred when news broke of the passing of Harry Cohn, the head of Columbia Pictures. Observing the large turnout at Cohn's funeral, someone commented on the surprising attendance given Cohn's unfavorable reputation. Skelton cleverly retorted, "Give the people what they want, and they'll come out for it." The Yellow Cabman continued Skelton's penchant for playing well-meaning but hapless characters who inadvertently cause chaos wherever they go. This archetype resonated with post-war audiences who saw in Skelton an affable everyman navigating comedic pitfalls in a rapidly changing world. The inventor angle also allowed the film to explore a satirical edge regarding America's fascination with innovation, safety devices, and consumer products. Skelton's comedic set pieces, accidentally breaking his own unbreakable inventions or steering a runaway taxi, demonstrated his flair for orchestrating comedic mayhem while never losing the character's innate likability. The Fuller Brush Man, produced by Columbia, offered a comedic spin on the classic film noir trope of an innocent man caught in a larger conspiracy. The murder mystery element, laced with comedic misunderstanding, gave Skelton opportunities to display both physical comedy and comedic wordplay, as he struggled to convince disbelieving bystanders of his innocence. The film's success hinged on Skelton's ability to balance the farcical elements with the more serious storyline, creating a dynamic comedic tension. That cameo remark at Harry Cohn's funeral is a testament to Skelton's quick wit. Cohn, notorious for his ruthless leadership style, was not universally liked, and Skelton's humorous observation reflected the industry's mix of respect and fear toward powerful studio heads. It also highlighted a broader cultural truth: a prominent figure's funeral can become an event, regardless of personal sentiments toward the deceased. Skelton's remark, "Give the people what they want, and they'll come out for it," indicated his sharp understanding of entertainment's fundamental principle: audiences follow spectacle, whether they love or hate the star. Skelton's diversification among different studios underscores how he sought roles that allowed him to experiment with character types and comedic setups. Sometimes working outside MGM's constraints gave him more freedom to innovate. These films reinforced his reputation as a bankable star who could deliver box office returns while broadening his comedic horizon beyond the Whistling series or cameo appearances in large ensemble productions. Television success and final film appearance: Skelton's actual medium, however, ended up being television, because his subsequent film comedies were quite underwhelming. In a series of comedic sketches at the start of Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines, Skelton made his last appearance on screen while miming various aviation pioneers and their futile endeavors. The Red Skelton Show and impact: the place where Skelton was most well liked and admired was on television. Among the talented individuals who contributed to Skelton's early success was the renowned television host Johnny Carson, who would later become an iconic figure himself. Carson started as one of Skelton's writers. However, Carson's on-camera debut came about unexpectedly when Skelton accidentally knocked himself unconscious during a rehearsal. In a swift turn of events, Carson was called upon to fill in for Skelton, and his appearance impressed the Columbia Broadcasting System to the extent that they offered him his own show in 1955. Skelton possessed a natural inclination for improvisation, much to the surprise and sometimes dismay of his guest stars, who anticipated adhering strictly to the script. Skelton took delight in creating impromptu moments that would cause his guest stars to break into laughter on camera. Even the legendary rock band the Rolling Stones made one of their early television appearances on Skelton's show, adding to its iconic status. Personal tragedies and shift in tone: while Skelton experienced professional success, his personal life was marred by tragedy. His 9-year-old son, Richard Jr., tragically lost his battle with leukemia. Additionally, his second wife attempted suicide, adding further anguish to Skelton's life. As a result, Skelton's work took on a more somber tone, and he began to lose his audience. No amount of comedic success could insulate Skelton from the unimaginable heartbreak of losing a child. Leukemia, not well understood at the time, carried a grim prognosis. The ordeal of watching his son suffer and eventually pass away shattered Skelton's world. He had poured so much energy into bringing smiles to other families, now he faced an unthinkable pain within his own. This loss weighed heavily on him, which became evident in his subsequent performances. Although he tried to maintain his trademark joviality, those close to him noticed an undercurrent of sadness that occasionally emerged in his sketches and monologues. The tragedy also strained his marital relationships. Dealing with the grief of a child's death can amplify cracks in any relationship, and Skelton's second marriage faced dire emotional struggles. The attempted suicide of his wife further underscored the severity of the family's turmoil. Tabloid interest in these personal crises disturbed Skelton, who had long sought to keep his family life private. As word spread, fans sympathized, but some also sensed that the king of laughter was enduring unimaginable anguish behind the scenes. Eventually, this sorrow manifested in Skelton's work. There were times when jokes felt forced, or the comedic routines leaned into sentimentality in a way that overshadowed the pure silliness of his earlier career. Some viewers appreciated the deeper emotional dimension, while others found it unsettling or incongruent with the image of Skelton they had cherished. Ratings for The Red Skelton Show began to slip, partly due to shifting audience demographics in the late 1960s, but also possibly reflecting the toll that personal tragedy exacted on Skelton's comedic spark. Beyond the show's ratings, the emotional cost was incalculable. Skelton remained a consummate professional, determined not to let his personal sorrow overshadow the entertainment he provided. Yet, the subtle transformation in his comedic delivery was unmistakable. At times, he seemed to be laughing with the audience while mourning internally. The theme of the clown with a broken heart became more than a cliché; it was an intimate reality for Skelton, who had always carried a trace of his father's legacy as a circus clown. In his later years, he turned to painting, creating a significant series of clown faces. These paintings gained considerable popularity and were sold in art galleries across the country, proving to be a lucrative endeavor. Sadly, on September 17, 1997, Skelton passed away at the age of 87 from pneumonia in his home in Rancho Mirage, California. His legacy as a beloved entertainer lives on, with his contributions to comedy and his enduring impact on television and art. Goodbye and rest in peace, legendary entertainer Red Skelton. In the end, Red Skelton's life reminds us that even the most celebrated comedians can face unspeakable challenges behind the curtain. From humble beginnings to Hollywood stardom, he spread laughter across the globe, yet his personal trials, especially the tragic loss of his son, left wounds that never truly healed. As we remember Red Skelton for his wit, warmth, and timeless performances, may we also reflect on the strength it took to keep entertaining despite his own heartbreak. Thank you for watching, and we hope this glimpse into his remarkable and poignant journey resonates with you long after the final curtain call.